Background info. My husband and I, late 28 male and female, have lived next to Jack and Jill for 2 years. We have a son who's young grammar school age, and they have 2 kids who are similar age, but a little bit older. All the kids go to the same elementary school, and I used to see Jack in the car rider lane. Unfortunately, our neighborhood is relatively close to the school, so the school bus does not pick up here. We have to walk or drive our kids to school. Jack and Jill have constantly had loud fights ever since they moved here. And by fights, I mostly mean Jill would scream at Jack and kick him out of the house on a weekly basis. Normally, he would sleep in his car and come back inside in the morning after she leaves for work. Jill works as a CNA at a nearby hospital, the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift. Jack worked from home, like I do, which let him take the kids to school. Well, after this last fight, Jack packed up all his stuff and left, flying back home to his mother in a different country. Jill recently came to me saying she has no one to watch her kids from roughly 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. She asked if she could send them over in the morning, have me watch them, feed them breakfast, and then take them to school, and then later pick them up and feed them dinner and watch them until she gets off work. I explained to her that being expected to be a second parent to 2 kids is not something I'm interested in. I asked how much she'd be willing to pay, and she said she expected me to just do it for free since she has no friends and no one else to ask. She also asked if I would watch them on the weekends so she could pick up extra shifts. Otherwise, she won't be able to pay the rent. I told her absolutely not, and that she's insane to think I'd agree to something so unreasonable when we aren't even friends, and our kids aren't. My husband thinks I was an idiot, and that we could offer to at least help sometimes for the kids' sake. My stance is that we both knew she wouldn't do the same for us if the roles were reversed, since Jill isn't really a nice person. Am I the idiot for not helping my neighbor with her kids after her husband left? Heck, the husband left the country to get away from her. Also, you don't need a rocket scientist to determine why she has no friends. Guess you're finding out why such a demanding, bullying woman is getting divorced and has no one in her corner. Not the idiot. Stay far away from this lady. The audacity. The entitlement is mind-boggling. You can offer help, as in bringing over a meatloaf here and there so they got something to eat, but not full-time babysitting for her kids. She'll latch on and never let go. Yeah, and just why didn't you have a martini, extra dry, shaken, not stirred, with an olive, ready for her when she showed up at your door? Tell her, I hope you can find a sitter who meets both your expectations and budget. Your husband may have a good heart, I get that. But then again, I presume that the bulk of the work falls upon OP, and perhaps he hasn't thought fully through the financial implications. But especially if you believe that Jill wouldn't do it for you, no, just no. Agree. We all know that if OP's husband volunteers to have the kids, occasionally, it'll very quickly become the permanent 5 days a week that this woman wants. Every day will be some kind of emergency or desperate need, or she'll just dump the kids on the doorstep and drive off before OP can say no. And it won't be the husband picking up any of the slack. OP will be voluntold to deal with it all. This lady reminds me a lot of the woman who lived down the street from me and who hired me to babysit her son while she was at work for $200 a month and expected me to clean her house and her cat's litter boxes, do the dishes, and cook breakfast and lunch for her son every day. OP, do you even know how much parents pay for the kind of service she's asking of you? Your neighbor is insane. My brother, 26, got married last Saturday. There are 3 of us in total. I'm the oldest, 27 male. The newlywed is the middle child, and our little brother is 21. At one point, I hated middle brother's partner. The 2 of them had bonded over some rough times they both experienced and were self-medicating together. I made it known I disapproved of the relationship and thought he was a bad influence. My brother and I didn't speak without arguing for probably a good 2 years. That's all changed now. His partner has been sober for many years and has become a close friend of mine and our little brother. We both gave toast speeches, and in Little Brothers, he said, "I can say there are 4, our last name, brothers, now instead of just 3. It was a very touching sentiment. After all the speeches were given, my wife pulled me aside kind of angrily and asked what I thought about them. I said that they were lovely. It turns out she was mad that when little brother gave a speech at mine and her wedding, he didn't insinuate that she was the first daughter of the family or anything like that. She said that his speech had mostly been focused on me, whereas his speech tonight was focused equally on both spouses and the future of their lives together. I brushed this off and said she needed to stop reading into things so much. About 20 minutes later, I see her looking similarly angry during a conversation with little brother. I walked over to try and stop this myself, but I saw our other brother and his new husband coming over, so he must have caught wind of what was happening as well. The two of us are very protective over our youngest sibling, so middle brother comes out the gate swinging, asking why she's bugging him. It all devolved pretty quickly. It didn't cause a scene, as everyone was trying to keep it hush-hush, but my wife cried when she was asked to leave, which attracted some attention. She asked me to come back to the hotel room with her, and I refused. I wanted to continue celebrating. She was furious and said this was just another way I was letting my brothers walk all over her, and that I was excusing them for not giving her a chance. Since then, she and I really haven't spoken, so I need some outside perspective. Indeed, my brothers aren't nearly as close to her as we are to the new addition to our family, but that's just how these things go sometimes. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your wife was 100% wrong to do this at the wedding. Resentment is the biggest killer of relationships. Your wife has put something in her room of resentment, and it isn't going to go away by itself. You need to address it, or it'll continue stewing in the back of her mind, along with anything else she puts in there. Reasonable or not, you should have taken her side, not in an argument, but by calmly removing her from the situation. I find it funny how he says they're extremely protective of the baby brother. He's a grown man, and the 3 of them were willing to defend him from one woman, yet the 3 grown men can't confront his wife, and he doesn't feel the need to be protective over her? That tells me where his priorities are, and it isn't with her. Everyone's the idiot here. Your wife shouldn't have mentioned anything at the wedding while angry, or not make that speech comparison at all. You should have played a more significant role in escalating the situation quicker. Kicking her out was a crazy punishment for a convo with the little brother, and you not being bothered enough to stop celebrating is telling. You need to ask yourself why your mood wasn't affected at all. I would look at you differently from her perspective. I, nearly adult female, just finished my junior year of high school. For some background, when I was 13, I got into musicals. I spent hours watching and listening to various shows amongst different casts, including any film adaptations of them. I developed a real passion, which I only ended up having more time for during lockdown. It was a great way to escape into something else when I was feeling lonely and closed off, and it really helped me emotionally through the entire ordeal. Due to this, it's become a bit of a dream of mine to go to Broadway and see a show live. I've seen some live regional theater in my state, but I'm in love with the idea of going to Broadway in person. When my grandmother, 62, asked me in my first year of high school what I would like for a graduation present, I asked her if it would be too much to ask for a short trip to NYC to see a Broadway show. She told me that if everything had calmed down by then, she would love to take me, saying I deserved something big and would love to return to New York. She went once years ago on a business trip. I got incredibly excited and would talk about it on and off with my grandmother as the years went by. However, recently plans have changed. I was on the phone with my grandmother the other night, and the trip came up. She asked me if I'd been saving up for my ticket. I asked what she meant, because I thought that the trip was a gift, and that it meant my ticket would be paid for. She told me the trip was a gift, but I needed to pay my way. She said it wouldn't be fair for me to be paid for and my brother and cousins not to be. I asked why my brother and cousins would be coming, because the original plan was just me, her, and my mom. She said she's been inviting her other 2 daughters and their kids, and that, of course, she's told my mom to invite my brother because she wants to take the trip as a family. I managed to get her off topic, and then we finished the phone call. I don't want my entire family to come. It would be too chaotic and impossible to organize any of them. Almost none of my mother's family is capable of being on time for things. I also don't want my little brother going because he's a tween and very loud and disruptive. He can hardly keep still and quiet in a movie theater, much less a Broadway show he wouldn't care anything about. This was also mainly about having a trip with my mother and grandmother, only because I live with my father and see his family more. I really don't want to go on this trip anymore because I don't want it to be more than my mom and grandma, and I really can't afford to buy my ticket or hotel room. I don't have time for a job outside of school and extracurriculars, and my dad won't let me get one. Would I be the idiot if I just said, I don't want to go anymore? Edit. To clarify, the original number of people meant to be involved was 3, me, mom, grandma, and now she's attempting to invite an additional 8 people, 2 aunts, their husbands, their combined 3 kids, my brother, and possibly more. We have to fly. We live over 1,000 miles from the state of New York. That's part of why I don't want so many people going. I know they wouldn't make it to the airport in time, and it would cause issues before the trip even starts. You are not the idiot. This doesn't sound like much of a gift. This is a family trip, not a gift for you. Explain the reasoning in depth to your grandmother. Tell her that because of the circumstances changing quite a bit, it isn't the same thing you asked for or were expecting. And for that reason, you'd prefer not to have that be your graduation gift. Tell her that your extracurriculars don't allow you time for a job. So even if you still want to take the trip, you don't have a way to pay for it. She asked me if I'd been saving up for my ticket. I couldn't get past that part. Like, even if it were reasonable for you to pay your own way, she never told you that you'd have to do so. To bring it up like this, as if it were the expectation all along, which it wasn't, and you both know that, is really scummy of her. You're a high schooler. Did she expect you to be able to pull this money out of thin air? Does she really think you can afford this? What the heck? I wouldn't want to go either, and I'd tell her exactly why. The gift is my presence, Grandma. Probably. Easy solution. You can't go because you can't pay. I'm sure tween bro doesn't have to pay. Find some friends in college who want to make a road trip. Go with them. It might take a couple of more years, but you'll enjoy the experience more. My parents are Asian immigrants and had a fairly typical story. Growing up without much money, studying incredibly hard to get multiple STEM degrees, getting a skilled worker visa to come to the U.S., working hard for years to become well off enough to live in a gated community and send their kids to private school. Ostensibly, the purpose of working this hard is to provide a better life for your kids than you had, so they don't struggle as you do. But in reality, I've seen a lot of Asian immigrant parents, including mine, pushing their kids to work as hard as they did and punishing them for not. I think this is pointless. If you worked your butt off to provide your children with a better life, then punish them for trying to live that better life by trying to be kids when they can, instead of working every second. Then what was your hard work for? I'm naturally a hard worker, so this isn't something my parents imposed on me. But my younger sister is a bit more carefree. She still gets good grades, is involved in activities, etc., but spends a lot of her time doing normal teenage stuff, like hanging out with friends, dating, etc. My parents are always upset by this, saying how much harder they worked when they were her age, and how she has a much easier life than them. They often threaten to give her less freedom and more work because she's lazy and has too much free time. I asked them, isn't that the point? They worked hard so that their kids could have a life that was better than theirs, and enjoy being a kid instead of worrying and working hard every second. If they're going to complain about them having and enjoying that better life and take it away, then make them live as hard as you did, then all the hard work they did as immigrants was pointless because it still resulted in the same difficulty. It's like what John Adams said about his generation studying war and politics so its kids could learn commerce and their kids could study poetry and art. The fact kids had more free time to enjoy life nowadays is a sign that my parents succeeded, and they should be happy about it. Instead, they got incredibly upset with me for calling their hard work pointless. They said that I was extremely ungrateful for all the sacrifices. I think that's colossally missing the point, but they think I'm the idiot. They don't want you to have a better life. They want you to be more successful than they were. To them, you got to skip all the hardships they went through. They don't see it as, so now you can enjoy it. They see it as, we carried you down the road so that you're starting at a better point than we did, so you can go farther than we ever could. You're not the idiot, but you've misunderstood where they're coming from. Dude, if they had taken the time for leisure as your sister does, you and your sister probably wouldn't exist, much less be in the privileged position that you're in. You need to understand that they didn't sacrifice just so y'all could enjoy life. It's a critical distinction. I feel like you've insulted them and don't respect their hard work and sacrifices. A bunch of internet strangers telling you you are or aren't the idiot isn't going to fix this. You'll have to talk to them and explain how you mean it. I, 21 female, met my fiancé, 23 male, through my stepsister, 23, as their friends. My stepbrother has told me multiple times since I started seeing my fiancé that he was using me for intimacy and that I shouldn't think I meant more to him than other girls he dated, as I wasn't the type of girl he would marry. I've been feeling happy and a little smug since my fiancé proposed, but my stepbrother has told our family that he only did it because I'm pregnant, even though I only told him after he proposed. He claims my fiancé already knew, but I doubt it. I said, I guess you aren't as close to him as you thought you were, to my stepbrother, after he made a comment about how my fiancé could still leave me when my stepdad said he was happy that my fiancé was stepping up. My stepbrother considers my fiancé one of his best friends, so I know he's bitter that he never told him he was planning to propose, and my comment struck a nerve. He's acting all cranky now and has commented about how I should stop acting so smug because I could still fall flat on my face, and how I don't know my fiancé as he does. Am I the idiot? Edit. My fiancé tells me to ignore him and says he doesn't know what he's talking about. Not the idiot, but if they're supposedly best friends, I wonder if there's a reason your stepbrother says such things. Wishing you the best, but if your stepbrother continues to make these comments, maybe it's time to ask him exactly why he makes them. Maybe your stepbrother knows her fiancé's been cheating. I can see him choosing loyalty to his friend versus his step-sibling, whom he already warned, who he thinks baby-trapped his friend, or something else, like maybe the stepbrother is secretly in love with the friend. I'm leaning towards everyone's the idiot here, because this whole dynamic sounds extremely immature and petty. A child will soon be involved. Reading this, OP and the stepbrother sound like teenagers. Instead of feeling smug, OP should do some introspection. The stepbrother may just be jealous or looking to cause drama, or there may be some truth to what he's saying based on what his best friend has communicated to him. Yeah, I'm not buying it. OP said stepdad said he was glad fiancé was stepping up. Why would he say that if no one knew she was pregnant before the proposal? I smell a rat. Maybe a baby trap to rub her brother's face in it. People have killed for less. I think something's going on between OP and her stepbrother, but just my opinion.